All right, so let's get into this Nell and Tisha situation from last episode. Now, as we know, Tisha and Nell, they don't have the best relationship or the closest friendship, but they decided to have this little sit down to discuss some things. Now, we know one thing Nell don't play about, and that's her husband, Chris. Don't come for Fletcher. So in the last episode, everybody was at Trish's birthday party. She had the cowboy thing going on, and the topic of transparency came back up. So Nell and Trish, they feel like the ladies are not being transparent about their relationships. Maybe they're hiding something that their husbands are doing. I don't know. But somehow everybody felt like the birthday party was the right place to address these issues. So then you could tell Tisha and Kimmy are getting a little irritated. So Tisha's like, well, they just want us to say what they want us to say, not what we actually tell them. Tisha swearing up and down she didn't watch the full interview with Martell and this woman claiming that she was with her husband. And Kimmy's pretty much on the same page with Tisha, like she watched it, but she didn't believe it. Now, I'm gonna say this. For them to say, okay, this video came out, I don't believe nothing that they said. I don't have no proof that my husband did anything. I do feel like at times these two like to hide certain things about their relationships, because Tisha doesn't mind addressing things about other people's relationships, but keeps hers a secret. You can't talk about Marceau. And Kimmy and Maurice comes off like this perfect couple, but I think Kimmy is just being quiet a lot of the times. Because even when they were speaking on Maurice and Jalen's relationship, Kimmy was very silent and she allowed Marceau to kind of lead the conversation, but she would just agree here and there. And then you got Maurice looking like, what? You agree? Oh, okay. Yeah, because she ain't telling you how she feel most of the time. So then Tisha starts to deflect. And then she brings up the whole Chris Fletcher, saying that the guys would most likely be the type to have some girls sign some NDAs. And so I've noticed that Tisha does this thing where it's like a tit for tat thing. So if you bring something to her that would cause her to be accountable, she'll throw something back at you. In this case, it's the whole Chris Fletcher situation. Like, I don't understand why they riding this so long. If the man say he didn't do it or mean anything by it, why do y'all keep wanting to talk about it? Because we clearly can't keep talking about the fact that y'all are not being transparent. So let's all just move on from it. But no, Tisha wants to go and talk to the guys. Even though the guys have already addressed the situation, you know, all it takes is for her to get a little bit of liquor courage and she's on 10. So when she tries to get all riled up and call Chris out, Chris is like, I don't answer to Tisha. Plus, I already discussed this over with your husband, so it ain't no point in having this conversation with you. And I agree. Why does she feel like it's okay to address somebody else's man when there's your husband over there to have that same conversation with him? Especially with you being on 10 already. So why are you even putting your husband in the situation right now? So I can see why Nell would be pissed off at this point, because you were supposed to go over there and talk to him, not turn up. But I'm glad at the end Marceau ended up checking her and getting her under control, because he knows she was too drunk. Because she wasn't going to do nothing but make the situation worse. So now we're at this little sit-down coffee date with Tisha and Nell. And from the jump, I felt like this was a bad idea, because I know Nell tends to turn up a lot quickly. And then Tisha has this thing where she has to kind of like match your energy all the time. Plus, on top of that, I feel like this conversation just happened way too soon. So there was too much tension before they had this sit-down. So as soon as they sit down, Nell is just getting straight to the point. And Tisha's like, dang, I didn't know Nell was gonna go all the way in. Well, Tisha, y'all don't really like each other, so what else do y'all have to talk about besides this issue of you getting into Chris's face and turning up at this party, and then you having your issue with Chris saying stuff about your husband? So what else is she supposed to do besides just get straight to the point? I just don't take Nell as one of those people that'll sit around and kiki before they get to why they actually there. So I don't blame her for getting straight to it. But apparently Tisha got some amnesia and she forgot that she was on 10 at this birthday party and getting all up in Chris's face. So she does the deflecting thing, and she starts to bring up the situation with Chris bringing up Marceau's name 2 times. So Nell is trying to figure out when was the other time he brought his name up. So then Tisha brings up that situation where Marceau is in the car with her and she's asking who he was out of town with in Atlanta. And he says Chris Fletcher. Now, I had no idea he was talking about this Chris Fletcher until they flashed back to that clip. And this is probably the one time where I seen Tisha looking at Marceau like, did you do something? And she was really thinking that he was out cheating. But ain't no telling, child, he probably was. But Nell is like, why do we keep bringing up this Atlanta situation? Now, if you ask me, I feel like Tisha is trying to throw this Atlanta situation into Nell's face, because at one point, Nell was calling Chris, asking who he was with. And apparently he put Marceau on the phone just to let her know that he was with Marceau. Now, if you know anything, you know if a woman is asking her man who he with, she trying to make sure he ain't with no woman. So it seems like Tisha tries to take every chance that she get to throw Nell's business out there because of this whole situation with Marceau and these other women. And I think it's messed up because she ain't gonna want nobody else putting her business out there. Remember, she want to tell her own story. So then why is you trying to sneak and tell Nell's business? But as expected, this conversation didn't really go anywhere. I think because Tisha has her parent meetings at this location, she wasn't really turning up here. But at this point, these two need to just let this go and move on from it, because you're not gonna be friends, you're not gonna be close. Just let it go. But child, we're gonna check back in next week when they had that little sit down with Martell finally.
If it refers to you, then it refers to you. And a hit dog will holler.